Merry Christmas, everyone. The day after, hopefully, you are all having a great holiday season with your families. How's it going, everyone?
What a week it's been, the this jolly old gentleman from the up north came to visit us. I hadn't seen him since last year. It was great. He brought some gifts, the usual.
Good times.
Well, awesome. What a busy Tesla week, too, right? It's like, I'm like, hey, maybe we'll get a week off, but nope. Never a dull moment, that is for sure. Well, quick shout out to Insta360 for their amazing cameras and sponsoring the show. And of course, today we have a special guest because we had some breaking news last Friday. It was actually like, I think, several hours after the show.
Yeah.
Something that, I kind of knew potentially could happen before the year ended. And it made sense that, it was like right before Christmas or right before the long weekend before this holiday was Elon's compensation package, and no one better to bring in than Amy herself at underscore SF Tahoe. Amy, how's it going?
Hi, it's going great. And of course, I'm absolutely ecstatic about the news that we got on Friday.
Well, with that, obviously, I think I'll just show a couple of quick things with that, but it's just like, as we know, right, Elon's compensation package deal was reinstated by the Delaware Supreme Court. But I think, from your perspective, Amy, like, what exactly was the ruling? What does this mean? And, what does things look like potentially even going forward?
Well, a couple of things that are interesting about the ruling. Of course, we no longer have to face that massive accounting charge, which Wall Street would have backed out, uh, typically in the financials, but it would have been over $120 billion accounting charge because we would have been paying Elon Musk with 2025 dollars and not the 2018 dollars for this already earned compensation package. So this was still a massive win, even though, but with the shareholder exercising our shareholder rights, shareholders have largely rectified the scenario, and we've removed a massive overhang from Tesla by doing so. We also had a lot of positive things that happened by moving Tesla to Texas, and winning this is a good precedent and will hopefully discourage attorneys from doing the same type of thing who thought that they were going to get attorney's fees worth over $14 billion at today's price by asking for 29.4 million shares of Tesla, but now I've ended up with what is called Lodestar times four, which I know it's getting rubbing a lot of Tesla investors the wrong way, but unfortunately for us, they won. They won in the first lower court. And so the court looks at that factor of, did they go to trial? Did they win? This is the precedent in Delaware. Not a lot that we can do to change the precedent. And what Tesla asked for in a Supreme Court hearing was for the court to look at three different options to get to a reversal. And the options that the court chose, the judges themselves called it the narrowest option that they all completely agreed on, where there's just no dissension whatsoever. They could come to this quick decision and this Christmas present for Tesla investors that we got the result right now. And it was a reversal. So I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, this stands and that stands and everything else stands. It was actually a reversal of the case. This case is no longer really held up for precedent. The Supreme Court did not affirm many of those things that we found to be problematic in the case. It was a complete win. And the reason why the Tesla attorneys asked for the three routes they did is two of the three meant the case ended right now when we got that opinion, as it did on Friday, that it was all done. It does not go back down to the lower court, transfer court, which is usually the way that an appeal works, is that the Supreme Court will say, you've made this error, you've made this error. Considering that, we would like you to reconsider your opinion, and that would have been a nightmare for Tesla investors. So, but what Tesla is attorneys did was very smart in saying, if you go either of these two routes, the one that they chose was, okay, we're not going to even go look at the fault finding. We're not going to look at any of the trial things. We're going to say that the remedy that you asked for was not available to you. You cannot do rescission. It's the only thing that plaintiffs' attorneys asked for, other than maybe a revote, which we had already done. And so, therefore, we're gonna just not even look at all that. We're gonna say this remedy wasn't available. You just get nominal damages. You get lodestar times four for attorney's fees, which stacks up with what happens in federal courts, stacks up with happens in any other state. It's not such a large fee for attorneys that is going to raise a lot of eyebrows. And there was a lot of plaintiffs' law firms, and you only see one person up in court, but they had many, many law firms, 30 or more attorneys in the courtroom every day. So when you divide it up amongst all the people working, this was not a windfall in any way. It's not what they thought they were going to get out of the case, and it's going to sting in a way that Tesla investors will appreciate for those plaintiffs' attorneys, that they had the full reversal like this, and that their fees were knocked down to a very nominal number for what they thought they were going to get. I am beyond ecstatic at this result. Most importantly, Tesla is a Texas corporation going forward. We're just not going to be back in this scenario as Tesla investors. It was a complete win. A little bit we could maybe talk about. It was not guaranteed at all. This is still a massive victory for Tesla that it happened this way.
And Amy, I have one more question. I remember when the decision was originally made that Chancellor McCormick said that, you, by, when she was granting their petition to move to Texas, she said, you can't use moving to Texas to try and escape my decision here about the rescission of Elon's pay package. And so now that the Supreme Court has reversed her decision, what happens with that? I always thought that there was potentially some surface area, if we didn't get this reversal on appeal, that she could actually try to, hold Tesla hostage, because we essentially have, reinstated Elon's pay package in Texas, kind of independently of Delaware. And so what kind of happens with all of that now?
That's a really good question. That was a separate case that went in front of her, where the move to Texas was actually challenged, and she didn't even really hear it. So credit to her on this one. She withheld her vote. She withheld the move, and it was not challenged in court. I think that's pretty much a done deal. There's a couple of other little pending cases in Delaware, like that are going to be going forward, like Elon Musk starting XAI. But on the whole, that doesn't is we're pretty much past this now. One of the things I would like to explain about why I say this was so not guaranteed as a result is, for years Delaware was known as a very good place to do business because they have their separate business court. You don't go in front of a jury. You go in front of these chancellors that just do business law, and it was a relatively known environment. But what happened with this known environment is this is what's called a court of equity. And there's not actually many of them that are left in the country, but Delaware is one. So it's far more dependent on case law than what we normally think, where every decision slightly changes and morphs the way that the law is applied for the next decision. So if you get a couple of chancellors in there that are far fringe, and every decision they make just moves the goalpost a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, then you get this type of result where you say you have a transaction specific CEO, who's controlling, when under anyone's definition of a controlling CEO, he's just not. The board is independent. They make their own decisions. He doesn't have as many, anywhere near the number of shares that nothing close to 50% that would be needed to say that he was the controlling CEO. He's never fired a board member for disagreeing with what he said. So under no standard, normally would that be the case. But in Delaware, because they kept sliding on every case further and further over, it was considered, because the judges said so, that he was controlling, even by any other standard he wouldn't be. And in the Delaware Supreme Court, they can only look at reversible errors of law for the most part. It's very hard to have a reversible error of fact. But as a Tesla investor, when we read that first decision, we just see all sorts of errors in fact. And it's one error in fact that piles on another, that piles on another, that piles on another, that creates a very different scenario when the Supreme Court looks at it, and they're constrained to look only at the record from what we know actually happened. So I do think that the things that the shareholders did to fight back, the fact that we did that letter to the board within 4 days of the original judgment saying we would like a ratification of this pay package, we would like to get out of Delaware, and we would like Elon Musk to be paid for his work going forward. And then the special committee cited that in their proxy, along with other communications they got from institutional investors, of why we were getting the ratification vote. And they did try and challenge the ratification vote. And why they didn't affirm it, they also didn't throw it out. So it was just not the avenue that they used to reach the reversal, but it was one of the avenues that Tesla asked for. It was the other one that would mean that we didn't remand, as if the ratification had just stood. So this was an exceptionally good result that in no way was it at all guaranteed. In fact, when the original opinion came out, I would say we had less than a 10% chance of having this result today, because the cards were all stacked against Tesla. They're all stacked against Tesla shareholders. Tesla shareholders had zero voice in the proceedings. The only person representing us was supposedly Ternetta, which I think some people misunderstand. This was not a class action case. So there was no ability to fire Ternetta the same way that you could fire him in a class action case. It's what's called a derivative case. This is what's barred in Texas unless you have a few percentage points of the company, which is 100 million shares or more, to be able to file at all. Where Ternetta pretended to be a representative of Tesla, or Tesla suing Tesla for a fiduciary breach. So it's a little bit archaic how that works, but this is an exceptional result for Tesla investors. The second part of your question, Hans, was the way that they've reinstated that pay package was to do a re-up of the 2019 equity plan, which was not the plan that was challenged in court. That was a separate plan. So that's why we're going to have to take that 120. Tesla was going to have to take the $120 billion accounting charge, because it was from that plan, and the options would be granted today. He would just be made whole in the number of shares he had. This is far better because it reinstates and keeps the original grant and the original accounting charge that was already made.
It was just wild to me that he made too much money. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a maximum wage, and second of all, Judge, you think that the correct wage is zero? That's immoral. That's illegal. That's deeply unethical, and it really tells us what we're up against, what we're looking at here. This is not the statements of a reasonable, rational, and sane person. People are paid. Kathleen McCormick does not work for free. And if someone came to her and said, no, you have to give back everything you've been paid over the last 5 years, I think she would file a lawsuit, and rightly so. That's mental. And like John was saying, like Amy said, the damage has been done. It is no longer the first place corporations think of when they're thinking of where to create their business. This is going to cause a deficiency in tax revenue for the state of Delaware. If your property taxes are going up and your services are going down, well, I mean, Kathleen McCormick is part of the reason why, a very substantial part of the reason why. Shareholders, you can argue, had their eyes that they were wearing blinders, or that they were lied to when the original compensation plan was written. If you'd like to argue that, you can. The board is not independent. Look, I want people rowing in the same direction. I don't want a war zone in there. Well, they just kicked kiss up to him. Have you read the books? Because it is arguments at times when it's warranted. That doesn't, well, they're woefully unqualified. No, they're all quite well qualified. I mean, come on. That's all just nonsense and insanity. And then, like when I bought my shares after the compensation plan was written. I even talked to my wife about it and said, look, this is, if Elon gets this, he's going to get $1 kajillion and we'll be able to pay off the house. How you feel about that? She said, well, that's a pretty good deal. And it was a pretty good deal until Kathleen McCormick changed the deal. That's not how you do it. And then, of course, we voted on it again, thanks to all the work done by Tesla Boomer Mama, by Amy, to raise awareness on these so we could do what little we could. And it didn't pass by 73% again. It passed by 72%. And the work was already done. That's the same margin, you guys. That's like ridiculously high. I knew it would pass. I didn't think it would pass by that kind of margin. So this is all insanity, and I'm just delighted to see at least some of it behind us.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is maybe I think I would have another question to Amy, is more of like, if anything, does the other side get anything? But before we get into that, I think this has been, it feels like I'm thinking in COVID years. It feels like it's been like 3 or 4 years. I mean, since this ruling and everything's happened, I can't even. It's just been. It feels like it's been forever. And so to end the year this way, just because, as we all know, when we've been following Elon and Tesla for the past 3 or 4 years now, this has been had a huge overhang not only on the stock but probably like just Elon's, like, and obviously the board has done things to make sure that he's very engaged with, like, hey, we'll pay you either way if you don't get it. But again, as I think Amy said, it is like with $25, which is like way more expensive. There's going to be a lot of accounting, just a bunch of like expenses hitting. And then obviously now his new pay package, if they hit certain really far out goals, which, it's all possible. But like, I think it's just, it's really nice to just end the year, put this behind us. And hopefully, like I said, for Elon to focus on autonomy, to focus on robotics, AI, and just really moving the company forward, as he said, and with amazing abundance rather than sustainable abundance. So it's just, I think it was just a huge win for Tesla, for the shareholders. And I didn't realize the big, it's just like, in a lot of ways, it felt common sense, right? Like, the shareholders voted, they re-voted, and so for me, I didn't realize, Amy, thank you for highlighting all of the, like, the big uphill battle, because I thought I didn't understand why this kept getting delayed in a lot of ways, to be honest. But clearly, it was a huge win, despite, like, I think this Mount Everest that we kind of had to climb over. But Amy, I think from your end, what does, if anything, the plaintiff, or really the other side get, and how bad does this sting, from their perspective of like this ruling?
Yeah, like, I would guess that they were already like looking for their mansions, looking for their private jets, from the money they thought they were going to get from this case, and this 4 times Lodestar is just not that. They just had so many plaintiffs' firms involved. Like I said, 30 or more lawyers in the courtroom, because I did attend 3 hearings in Delaware that were all on the plaintiff's side, and that was just the ones that showed up in court. That's not even all the ones that were elsewhere. It's just, it's this money is split amongst a lot of different firms. It's nowhere near what they thought that they were going to get. They've been receiving some reputational damage, from the way that the shareholders and everyone else responded to this case, and are responding to Delaware. Like, there was a survey over the weekend: are Delaware attorneys parasites? And the majority said yes. So it's, we can see in the lack of new big cases. We only had a couple that were filed under the wire before Tesla actually made it to Texas. really not much filed in Texas. Shareholders has just placed a protective moat around the company where if you were a plaintiff's firm, you are going to sue every other company out there other than Tesla because Tesla shareholders fight back. Tesla lawyers don't settle. They keep on going until they win. It's just not going to be the easy way to use a company as an ATM or a cash machine to come after Tesla. So as I said, this even though the reversal was on a narrow issue, this is so it's just done. So it's done that we put it behind us. Elon Musk gets paid. Tesla doesn't have the accounting charge, and we just then Tesla moves forward as a Texas corporation. This was a complete and total win for Tesla investors, and it's 29.4 million shares, which is what they had originally asked for as a fee, would have made them as big as Fidelity in a voting block for plaintiffs' attorneys that hate Tesla, that hate Elon Musk, that don't think our board is independent. And thank you, Brian, for bringing that up. Is by NASDAQ definitions, the Tesla board is very independent. The NASDAQ is you cannot be the direct family member, so that's only Kimball, but you can disclose it if someone is. And you cannot have worked at the company for a couple of years. And if you're not either of those things, you are independent. So via the NASDAQ listing standards, Tesla is an independent board, it's an independent company. And now in Texas, all the normal laws will hold true and Tesla will have visibility into what they need to do to be able to stay to match the legal standard and the corporate governance standard of good corporate governance because Tesla had done everything that Delaware required. And then they come back after the fact and they say that a blue sky is red and they change what all the facts are. And if the judge in the lower court says it, it becomes fact, it becomes true, and the Supreme Court has a hard time overturning it. This was just an exceptional result, an exceptional result.
But you left
Yeah,
out the best part. How much did the plaintiff get awarded? The actual
I know.
plaintiff, not the
That was what I was
lawyers.
going to say. Freaking hilarious.
Yeah,
One.
54, about 54 million, we think, is
No,
what
no,
it's
that's
going
what
to
The
be.
lawyers,
that's
but
what the
lawyers.
Oh, the
lawyers got.
$1.
The
Yeah, the
$1.
$1. Yeah.
Good job, my friend. You got one, and frankly, that's within. I say that's within about a buck of what he deserves,
Yeah.
give or take.
It's a
Yeah.
dollar more than what he
Yeah.
deserves.
I mean, either way,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Do
and the lawyers started this case. Let's be
yeah.
real.
Oh
Like
yeah,
he was just a placeholder and a name on a filing.
right.
And I had actually by the Supreme Court, I even asked not even for a dollar. He asked for nothing because the pushback that he was receiving was so exceptional that it looked like he regretted it, but he didn't do the right thing, which would have just been to fire his attorneys and drop the case, which
Yeah.
is not what happened. But
Do we know, was he even showing up to these like hearings?
oh God,
Did he
no,
not?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did not attend once. I attended 3 times, and he was not there once. And I flew all the way across the country to do it.
Yeah. That's
Yes,
insane.
but you actually care, which is a pretty critical difference between
Yeah,
the parties.
exactly. And I actually have a lot at stake myself. I own Tesla shares, and I'm a real investor that's been following the company since 2010. So
Right.
Just
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been great to see just all the work that you've done, Amy, in the back. I think on behalf of the community, we're so thankful for, especially you just coordinating these lawyers, getting to know who are the teams. I don't know if you want to give any of them a shout out too, because I think I did a post the other day. You had, I mean, it was like a whole team of lawyers, but I think really you really played a huge role, just setting up all of this, even the meniscus and all just everything that was like kind of happening. And so I think yeah, so just on behalf of the community, thank you for all your work on this.
yeah, I would absolutely like to do a thank you to the unbelievable dream team that we had representing shareholders' interests. So, like I said before, since this was a derivative case, shareholders had zero representation in this case whatsoever, even though what the attorneys originally asked for was 29.4 million shares of Tesla as their fee, which would have diluted all of us. So we were being asked to shoulder the burden of a mistake we didn't make, have dilution of our votes and of our financial interest, and which equated about 1% of your holdings that you would have been paying in dilution to these attorneys. Um, and all I did was do a lot of research, but I researched who will the Delaware courts listen to. And typically they listen to law professors that are experts in corporate governance. But even then, they have the right to not listen to it. So then I'm like, well, if I need a law professor, I need somebody who's an entrepreneur at heart, understands tech, understands technology. So who's at Stanford? And I Googled it. I found this wonderful man, Joe Gunfest, who was a former SEC commissioner, is the head of the Rock School of Corporate Governance, and is himself an entrepreneur. He started a company that is trading on the New York Stock Exchange. Like, just an exceptional, brilliant, driven man, and emailed him with what investors had already done, and our collective outrage that was palpable from the moment that this was announced was raising attention. So that it talked about the shareholder letter that we'd done with 5,900 shareholders writing into the board, equal to $4 billion of Tesla shares, saying that we wanted the ratification. I talked about the letters to the court. I asked him what other things we could do and what his advice was for us. And within a few hours, he's like, let's talk. And was like, I'm going to suggest something very aggressive. I'm going to say we should intervene, and shareholders should have a voice, and you should have representation. And then we had to go on a journey to try and find other attorneys, because you need a Delaware attorney and you need a firm that has more resources than Joe would, that were not conflicted out to be able to do this. So he eventually calls one of the guys that he knows the best, who is a former Solicitor General of the United States, who argued and won the case on equal rights for marriage and gay marriage, a very landmark case. Pretty much any lawyer in the country would know who this man is. And Don Verrilli said, yes, I'll do that. So he's also the one, if you follow crypto, that won Ripple in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. One legal commentator said, having Don Verrilli on the case is like you just got SEAL Team 6. Like, he is like the biggest gun of the big guns that came riding to shareholders' rescue. And along with him was Ashut Faki at Munger, Tolles and Olson. This is Charlie Munger's firm. Rebecca, Elaine Goldenberg, Daniel Keene. There's just so many good attorneys. I think that I've had at one point or another 30 attorneys that were working on this for shareholders' benefit, simply because I asked. And because they wanted to right the wrong, the same way that we all wanted to right the wrong, the same way every Tesla shareholder wanted to right this complete wrong that we saw. And I think it's the best of America that they would come in to our rescue. And then Anthony Ricci was the Delaware attorney. So when you talk badly about Delaware, remember that Anthony Ricci rode to our defense as shareholders, and Delaware attorneys also helped Tesla turn this around and win it. So it's everyone in Delaware is not the same. There are some really, really good people there, though this was a really bad initial result for us, and we thank God we've made it different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Hans or Brian, any follow-up questions? Otherwise, we can go on to the autonomy and all the cybercab stuff happening. All right. Well, yeah. So again, Amy, just thank you to your dream team of all of those lawyers that you mentioned. I think it was huge. Like, the community needed someone to be able to kind of put all these pieces together and move it forward, because otherwise, this was just a battle that may not have gone our direction if it wasn't for all of the work that you did. And I think you guys even potentially giving up some time during some of these hearings was huge. So thank you on behalf of the community. Well, Joe, I'll leave this one to you, and then also maybe explain it a little bit in case Amy can't, because she's on her phone and stuff. But
Yeah. So this is Tesla cars drive themselves. It's probably nothing. Nobody is aware of this, but I mean, just in case you didn't know. But so I thought this was pretty cool. Like Elon had posted that he was in a Tesla driving in the passenger seat all around Austin for who knows how long, and it was pretty awesome. And then Untasai had also commented, yeah, we've been working on this moment for a long time. But I wanted to highlight the repost by Tesla Boomer Mama from Cybertruck Mama. So Cybertruck Mama said, "Cars are to Tesla what books were to Amazon," and I thought that was so profound. It made it so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty great. But anyway, anybody else got any comments? Like Ashok Alaswamy was in the back seat. Pretty funny.
This is what we've been waiting for. This is what we've been expecting. We've been looking for this. Is autonomy a big deal? I don't know. It kind of feels like it might be. We saw with the recent PG&E outage, there was the all of the Waymos ground to a halt. Middle of the road, side of the road, passenger in, passenger out, didn't matter. It was shut down. If that had been Tesla's goof, we would still be hearing about it. We would still be hearing calls to ban these dangerous machines from the road. It's ridiculous. It just goes to show that, like all good magic tricks, there's a whole lot of trickery going on with a Waymo. And that trick is great if you can make it work, if people believe in it. But we're starting to see behind the curtain. It's got, it's not a robot. If there's humans involved to this degree, it's a cyborg. That's a critical difference. My car doesn't have someone watching me sit there and supervise. I guess I'm the one supervising, but it's just a whole different philosophy. And we're now seeing more and more come out that this is Waymo's plan from the beginning. There's always going to be humans involved. If your plan is to never eliminate the humans, you're never going to reduce the costs in a meaningful way. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This is what we wanted to see. We want to see this keep moving forward, and we're getting to see exactly that.
And once more, we have, critical milestones that are being hit on the deadline that has been set. And so it's great to see, this technology continues to get better and better for, those of us who understand what Elon has been saying this whole time, that what you need to drive is actually cameras and a brain. Then, this is not surprising at all that it continues to get better and better. But it is, great vindication to just sit behind the wheel, whether, in your own hardware 4 car and experience version 14 and just see it continue to improve, or to go to Austin or San Francisco and actually get to sit in the back seat and watch this car drive itself. It is an incredible experience, an incredible technology, and we are rapidly approaching the time when it's going to be indisputable that, yes, Tesla can drive with no one in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat with many more cars than Waymo has, much more reliably and in many more places. And so it's really exciting that we're getting so close. It just feels like you can taste it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, in Austin, it's really exciting because I think they had about a week ago they had, or probably 2 weeks ago now. I think there was a couple videos that landed on X with no one in the car, and then we've seen a couple of, I think it was like Phil from Tesla, and then now Ashok as well, who posted videos of like kind of like longer rides. And so for me, it's like I said, once Tesla kind of like gets Austin and lands that, then it'll be just about scaling that region. But really, then it's just going to be about vetting all these other cities and getting the safety drivers there, getting the miles that that they want to have to get this. But at that point, like, it's just going to be, in my opinion, just going to come down to testing and regulation, which you could versus, like, I think with Waymo, they would have just a scaling issue with just their current model. And so I think for me, it's just like this is kind of we've been waiting a long time for this. I know FSD beta was released a little over 5 years ago, and us always thinking that this company is going to be like an Uber, it's going to be like a Turo, or our cars are going to be able to just leave from our house and go into the network. Like we're who knows how far we still are from like those days of like private consumers being able to like let their vehicles, but these cars driving themselves, again, it's just software update. I mean, we all see 422 now and 221, whatever you have, but it's just leaps and bounds further ahead than it was even a year ago, 2 years ago. And so it's just like I think continuously, you're seeing this inflection point too with analysts as they're adjusting their targets. But people are really starting to see, you know, what we've been saying. It's like, hey, this is not a bookstore anymore. This is this will essentially sell everything you can imagine on the internet and deliver it in 2 days. It's kind of like what we're saying. It's like, no, these are not cars. These will drive themselves. And not only will Tesla own their own fleet, but private citizens can own their own fleet that can go on the network. I mean, it's just, again, you could go on for days about kind of like what Tesla is.
Car sales are down, John. It's the end of the world, don't you know? Tesla's a car company. They're selling fewer cars. You know, that Netflix company, their mail DVD business just keeps collapsing. It gets smaller every quarter. It's the end for Netflix. They'll never make it. Guys, there's this whole second thing they're doing, right? Yeah, but I don't participate in that. I don't want to participate in it. So I'm just going to focus on the mail part of it. And there we go. It's over. Yeah. It's ridiculous, and there are people I see in the comments on my videos every day who missed the boat. They missed the other boat. They missed all the boats. They're unaware that there's still boats departing, and they're just happy to miss them again. And hey, man, good for you. The people who said to me, "I bet you feel stupid that you didn't sell it 105, 109, whatever it got to." That's not who I am. If I was the type of person who would have tried to sell to get all my profits out, I would have sold back at $25 when I doubled my money. But I didn't, because I don't pretend to know better than the market. I just know that what I can see over the long term horizon, if I could see a company better positioned to implement real world AI in a monetized way, in an embodied way, I'd probably invest in them. I've met so many people. Well, Elon's a fraud. Great. Cool. It's a great story. You should definitely tell it at parties, except that you already do. I know, because I've been to the parties. I've met so many of the engineers who work there. Actually, I'd say everyone in this show has met a ton of the engineers who work there. These are amazing people. These are the best and brightest, without a doubt. I don't know who else I would invest in. Who else I would have the confidence of the kind of team that we see put together. And I don't know. I'm just excited.
Well, and just to enhance that point, not only does Tesla have some of the greatest engineers, and they continue to bring in more engineers, they continue to develop great talent, but like the people who have left Tesla are still better engineers than work at almost any other place. Like, these people come to Tesla, they work their butts off, they do the best work of their lives, then they get burnt out, and then they go to other companies, and then they're still better than any of the people there that they're working with, even at burnt out, 50% capacity of what they were when they were at Tesla. And, just trying to take it easy and, have some work-life balance for a change. And, Tesla's like, okay, that's great. We'll just continue to bring in this year's best crop of engineers from every best engineering school around the world to work at both Tesla and SpaceX. And, the good ones can go wherever it is that they want. And we'll continue to make progress at the very bleeding edge of technology. And that is incredible. That's really one of the key investment theses for Tesla and SpaceX, is that engineers solve really hard problems. The best engineers solve the hardest problems and the biggest problems. And if you have, year in and year out for decades, the number one and number two spot for engineering graduates to want to work at, and you have your pick of the litter, and then you continue to put those people to work in an organization that allows them to do their highest and best work for a decade, yeah, that company's probably going to accomplish some pretty incredible things that are going to solve some great problems, create a ton of value, and become a, I don't know, multi-trillion-dollar company in the process.
Well, I would enhance what you're saying by saying that if you've got Tesla on your resume, a lot of doors are open. They just are.
Just a little bit. Amy, to you.
Yeah, this was a very exciting week all the way around to see Elon Musk riding in the back of a Tesla with nobody in the driver's seat, and just know that that's the point they are at. They're just so ready to they're just poised. Tesla is as the company to massively scale robotaxi across multiple regions, like everyone here has touched on. And I think the Amazon book analogy that Joe brought up is very powerful, because while Amazon was selling books, they were building this entire infrastructure. They were deeply in the red year after year after year, while they were building this infrastructure. And then all of a sudden, people realized, well, they can use that same infrastructure to go ahead and sell everything else, right? And then Tesla's exactly at that point. Waymo is like you trying to learn how to ride a bicycle. So you start with training wheels on it. And you can get out on the road and you can ride miles with those training wheels. But you're never going to actually learn how to ride the bike if you don't take the training wheels off, because you will never get a sense of balance. It's in hindering your ability to get a sense of balance. Because Waymo has this modular architecture, and the way that they've designed it, because they use these multi-sensors, they have a safety module that will come in and override the AI, because they don't have the long context window that Tesla does. It's very hard for them to do an end-to-end neural net model, and to have something truly smart, like Brian was saying. If the human is that involved in the loop, you just can't possibly scale. And meanwhile, Tesla has gigafactories out there that all have space saved for the new Cybercab, where John went down and did the beautiful review for us of the production model of the Cybercab. That there, it's close. If you look at the actual resources that Tesla is dedicating to be able to scale robotaxi massively, then there's the Samsung chip factory for AI 5 and 6, I believe it's going to be. It's down in Texas, entire chip factory. Waymo is talking about a few new cities. Tesla is getting production lines set up for massive scaling of the Cybercab. They're getting chip factories set up for the massive scaling of the chips. And this is all billions and billions and billions of dollars that Tesla has spent while being a profitable company, 70,000 GPUs that nobody else has spent, no, the infrastructure that no other company has. Nobody else is even close. And then similar to like Amazon, with it just being books, all this infrastructure is going to roll right on into Optimus. This is the most excited I have ever been about Tesla's future, and I have always been very optimistic about Tesla's future.
Yeah, it's really, like I said, I think we're at some point, like I said, they're going to report on car deliveries, and we'll see how that goes. I don't know the estimates off the top of my head, but it's going to become one of those things where obviously they'll have to still report those, because that's going to be still a huge part of their business. But more and more, it's just going to be, the conversation is going to be about how are you guys unblocking these regulations to get more of these cars on the road? How is the driving going? Is there any accidents? Well, of course, we're going to hear about any accidents that are happening. And actually, I'm trying to find, partially jumping ahead a little bit here, but there is a slide that Joe, you put together on what ended up. Oh yeah, so this one. So
yeah, buddy.
Not this one. Sorry, this one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to explain this one, but I would love to know the thoughts. Just because, again, we're facing that inflection point where you're starting to see, we know with Tesla you have the scale, right, which is going to be possible, but then you also have the technology difference. But I'll throw it to Joe real quick.
So this is what Brian touched on a little bit earlier. So the Tesla the San Francisco had a blackout, and Waymo froze, and Tesla's just kept driving and on FSD, and it was pretty telling. I think that moment right there was pretty telling for everybody who had all the naysaying. Like Jerry Rig Everything had this quote up here: "Turn all the lights off, vision cameras fail, lidar keeps working." That didn't age well. That didn't age well at all. But as a reminder here from Matthew Donegan Ryan, he put unlike gas stations, Tesla chargers, superchargers actually work during the power outages. There was a 500,000 homes in Seattle that went without power, and the gas stations were out, but the superchargers were able to keep charging the Teslas. So, I mean, there's a lot that Tesla has done for the infrastructure, and they kind of know what they're doing because, like Hans was saying, they get the best, they hire the best, and the best work at Tesla. So yeah, this is just all around just a good week, man. I mean that was crazy. And just before we throw it to the panel, I really want to highlight the safety aspect of what's happening here, what Tesla's doing, because yeah, it's cool the cars can drive themselves, but at some point you're going to realize that you're being unsafe not letting the car drive itself. And I know we've all seen like iRobot movie and stuff like that, and that was like one of the funniest scenes in the movie. It's like, you're driving, what the heck, that's totally unsafe. And so we are at that inflection point, and you just kind of see it like all the time when it's raining and nighttime. Like, I'm so glad that my truck is driving me, and like I don't have to worry about it, because it gets kind of crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to throw it to the panel real quick on just your thoughts of like the whole Waymo um issue that we saw in the past week, but and then also too, I know Hans, maybe you're probably more familiar with it, and as far as like, I think they had like they came out and said, hey, this is our learnings, this is what we've done. But you know what's really interesting, actually someone just mentioned it in the comments specifically about, when you think of Tesla, they released Grok. Now Grok also too does the multiple or like the waypoints, which is like, hey, I want to go to Starbucks, bank, and then to work after. You can do all of that. I think where people are missing this is just seeing how fast and quick this integration that's happening with Grok and the Tesla. Think of your iPhone. How long has Siri just been a piece of garbage for almost, what does it feel like, 15 years? Hasn't really changed much at all. And look at what Tesla is doing, and they're literally integrating, AI on top of their vehicle, which is, it should be a sign and a model to like, hey, Apple, don't look too far. Just look at what Tesla's doing. This is what you need to do to your phone, right? It's not rocket science, right? And so it's just, yeah, that was just an interesting point, but it's, yeah, kind of side note. But yeah, what did you guys think on Waymo? Not everyone at once.
Well, I already shared my thoughts on it.
I think what was interesting was Elon Musk's recent comment about how much the model has changed just since Andre Carpathy left. And that is basically Waymo has not updated their model as AI is rapidly changing, and the tech that is available that you can do now with AI is not what you can do before. And we saw that when Tesla went end-to-end neural nets, the massive leap in how smooth the car was. And now every subsequent leap, what Ian Sai had just said that they just went back and drove version 13 for fun, and they realized what a massive leap forward once again version 14 was. So it is, again, that choice to go ahead and use what is the state of the art to make the hard call that we've been doing it this way. We're going to ditch 300,000 lines of code. We're going to go to end neural nets. And now you're seeing the result and the payoff of it. That Waymo had a complete meltdown. And I've used Robotaxi in San Francisco 4 times in the last week. Just seamless and smooth every single time I've used it. It is such a pleasant experience. It's so much nicer than any ride that you're going to get, even in a black car, even with a professional chauffeur. The Robotaxi tops it. So it's not only going to be, and it was a quarter of a price or less than the price that an Uber would have been for the same ride. It's just an incredible experience.
Yeah, and you don't have to tip the robot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, one of the things that still goes under discussed is that Tesla is moving rapidly into a world where it's not just end-to-end neural nets in the car, but they're moving to an end-to-end training loop that is completely automated. That, when Alpha Zero just absolutely destroyed AlphaGo back in the mid 2010s at learning to play Go. DeepMind had this incredible project. They used a bunch of human data to train AlphaGo how to beat the best human players in Go in the world, and they were able to do that successfully. But it was really hard. And then once they had finished that, they were able to use a new system where they had the system play itself. So this is called unsupervised learning with self-play, to learn how to play Go without any human data. And that model actually way outperformed the AlphaGo model. And that is the end state that Tesla is moving towards. We still do use some human data in the training loop, but after the presentation that Eshok gave earlier this year, and they showed how they can actually do this fully automated training loop now, they're getting much, much closer to being able to do an unsupervised learning training regime with self-play to continue to improve these FSD models. And so, version 13 was the beginning of end-to-end neural networks. Version 14 is probably a middle progression of now we've got end-to-end neural networks in the car and this hybrid unsupervised learning with self-play training regime. I think when we get to version 15, it's going to be a fully unsupervised learning with self-play training environment, and we should expect to see that Alpha Zero type driving, superhuman driving performance using just cameras and just neural nets running in the cars that will be way, 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 way better than any human driver could ever be. And it's going to be then democratized limo drivers that live inside of these Model 3s, Model Ys, and cyber cabs that there are millions of on the road all over the world.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy, and it's one thing I did want to call it too. I think there's hold on, let me just back up a little bit on the. I think this is it. So yeah, I mean, as Tesla is becoming and getting ready and gearing up for really becoming like the next Uber, right, and Lyft, and what are they doing? They're starting to build out all of the assets for it, right? Like their website now, you can go to their website. I think it's tesla.com/robotaxi, but either way, they've started rolling out even things um like potential cleaning fees, like, right, $50 for moderate messes, $150 for severe messes. And so, and also too, if you live in the Bay Area, I know both Joe and Brian, Amy, you got to come down and go check it out if you haven't already. But like they've released the latest production version of the Cybercab, and a lot of the materials different. The way even the way it looks like it's built is completely different. But it's just more fine-tuned. It's ready to rock. And so I think it's just a sign that this company is very serious and very close to making this happen. Because like I said, their issue isn't going to be how many cybercabs and Model Ys can they produce. It's going to come down to how many can they legally put on the road, or maybe they can put a bunch on the road and then pull back later. But it's just one of those things where once this starts happening, Austin's close. Elon's was driving there. And so they're knocking at the door at this point. It's not a matter of, it's just a matter of when will this, continue to be rolled out. And they've solved it in a lot of ways. So, and Amy, again, she lives in, the San Francisco area. I live more like in the San Jose area. And it's like San Francisco is one of the hardest areas to deal with. And she's had, several rides where they've just been seamless. And so, to be able to tackle those, but again, Tesla has, I think, 400 square miles in the Bay Area that they're covering. Obviously, a huge part of that is, the Bay that comes down, but it's still, you can literally go from South San Jose all the way up to Berkeley, which is, what, 70 miles, maybe 80 miles, something crazy like that. And I mean, you're talking an hour 15, hour 20 drive, and so it's just they're starting to roll out everything, and get everything ready. And then Brian, were you gonna say something?
I just wanted to say I just finished about 2,400 miles of road trip. Started in Washington State, down through Oregon, into the Bay Area, out to Reno, back to the Bay Area, and back home. And I'm well over 99% on FSD. For those who've been watching the channel for a while, you'll recall I was deeply skeptical of FSD, especially on version 11. Worked great in some cities, in some places, but not well in most places that I happen to drive. I don't care how good it is in the Bay Area if I don't live in the Bay Area. Well, version 14 just works. It works on isolated roads in the middle of nowhere. It works on suburban roads. It works on poorly marked or unmarked roads. Now it works well in the pouring rain on the highway when all you've got is spray coming at you. It can see through it better than ever. Yesterday, we were just sure it was going to drop us down below the speed limit and then say, no, buddy, it's all on you, because it was just spray. It was gross. And it didn't. It did cut the speed down, but only to the speed limit, which I think, based on road conditions, is probably quite reasonable. This product works. If you've tried it in the past and you didn't like it, try it again. It's different. It's a new product all the time.
Yeah, and you're starting to see also too. I think we can finish with this. Here, let's go to the very last slide. All right, so Tesla FSD making. So shout out to the people who are watching from Europe. It looks like Sawyer put out this thing, a new shuttle service using Tesla vehicles with FSD supervised is now operational in Germany. It is the first project of its kind in Europe. All parties involved, approval authorities and company work closely work together to make this project possible. So yeah, so either way, we'll see how this works, but I think more, like I said, Europe is a different behemoth. There's a lot of regulation there that happens, and so I think shuttle services like this, especially in Germany and other places, are just going to be huge. So any way to make sure that they can prove out this to the Europeans will be huge to get this there. Judge, you want to say something?
Yeah, because I think you hit on something that's pretty good, because as a shuttle service is one thing, right? But knowing that it's in a Tesla that's self-driving, I think it's just gonna be a little bit of that switch for everybody to see, like, oh wow, I mean, and we see it all the time. It's always butts in seats, but there's always people that had no idea, I mean, and this will help the naysayers, I think. Good on Tesla for this one.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, shout out to Joe for putting together the deck. Obviously none of us knew that that this would be such a busy week. And so, and Amy, I just wanted to give you a quick comment. A bunch of people in the feed on all of these channels, whether it's Hans or even Brian's, they're just commenting and thank you for all your work, Amy. So I think everyone knows that, the work that you've done, the team that you pulled together, and then, just helping rallying the community with a lot of the other key folks here as well. So we thank you for your work there. And so make sure you guys, if you are on X, give her a follow. It's @_SF Tahoe. And then also too, please patronize our other co-hosts here, whether it's Joe, Holiday, Wooby, Watat. I can't say
Holiday, Hooby, Woody.
Oh my gosh. And then Brian and Hans, give them a follow as well. Follow their channels. They're all doing great work. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Hopefully you guys have a good New Year as you head into that. Shout out to those people in Tahoe. I'm super jealous. 10 feet of snow. But outside of that, hopefully you all have a great holiday week. See ya, everyone. Have a good week.